In 2016, in Hong Kong, at the International Mathematical Olympiad, a North Korean teenage contestant, Ri Jong-yol, won a silver medal. But on the night of the celebration, he slipped out of the dormitory at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, flagged down a taxi, and in broken English said just 3 words: "To the airport." His passport had been confiscated. He didn't speak Cantonese, and if he went back, he might never get another chance to leave. That night, he faced only 2 outcomes: freedom or a lifetime in a forced labor camp. In 1998, Ri Jong-yol was born in Pyeongseong City, North Korea. Jong-yol showed a talent for mathematics from a very young age. When he was 7, while other children were still struggling with addition and subtraction, he had already mastered the entire elementary school math curriculum. His father noticed his mathematical gift, so he deliberately intensified his training in this area. In North Korea, mathematics is an extremely important subject, so important that for most exams, math is tested twice. And when he applied to North Korea's first middle school, he was admitted based solely on earning a perfect score in math. The math problems were so difficult that very few people could get full marks. As long as math was a perfect score, even if he knew absolutely nothing in the other subjects, the total score could still be enough. This shows just how extraordinary Jong-yol's mathematical talent was. In 2014, when Jong-yol was only 16, he represented North Korea for the first time in South Africa at the International Mathematical Olympiad, and stunned everyone by winning a silver medal. Before that, his extraordinary talent had already earned him a place at Pyongyang No. 1 Senior Middle School, North Korea's cradle for cultivating top-level geniuses. After he brought home 2 international silver medals in 2014 and 2015, the school valued him even more, and even made an exception to reward him with a laptop loaded with professional mathematics software. In North Korea, this was not only an expensive piece of electronics, but also a symbol of privilege that only a very small number of trusted elites could possess. On the other hand, traveling abroad for 2 consecutive years gave Jong-yol a broader perspective. He realized that the outside world was very different from the rigid stereotypes he had been taught all his life. Faced with this contradiction, if it had been an ordinary teenager, it probably would not have triggered any deeper reflection. They would have followed the path an indoctrinated ordinary person was supposed to follow, continuing to live in ignorance and confusion. Years later, when they saw the leader, they would raise their hands in excited frenzy and burst into tears uncontrollably. But Jong-yol was not ordinary. He seemed to have realized something. In 2015, when he won his 2nd silver medal at the International Mathematical Olympiad in Chiang Mai, Thailand, the relevant authorities began questioning his classmates and teachers, asking them to report on Jong-yol's ideological state, whether he had shown any inappropriate behavior in daily life or said anything he should not have said. At the same time, an investigation into his family background was also launched. In North Korea, interests are above everything. If someone is chosen by the state, it is an immense honor. News spreads quickly, and Jong-yol received many pieces of information about this at the time. Putting those messages together, he reached the conclusion that he had been chosen. Once he turned 18, he would be transferred directly from high school into a secret unit, and his mathematical talent would be used for cyber warfare. That unit was North Korea's cyber forces. The history of North Korea's cyber department can be traced back to the 1970s. At the time, the cyber department sent many students to the Soviet Union and East Germany to study programming technology, with the goal of making the production efficiency of domestic factories more effective. But starting in the 1990s, Kim Jong-il realized the importance of the internet, so he ordered the construction of the Korea Computer Center, focusing on the development of computer software, and at the same time built a secret hacker force to gather foreign intelligence and conduct offensive and defensive cyber warfare. In 2011, after Kim Jong-un took power, North Korea insisted on conducting nuclear tests and was hit with multiple rounds of United Nations sanctions. This not only dealt a blow to North Korea, but also placed severe restrictions on its foreign trade. Life without US dollars was simply not easy. But Kim Jong-un had studied in Switzerland and had seen the world. He issued a new directive to the cyber forces: use the internet by any means necessary to earn foreign currency for the country. This gave birth to the infamous Lazarus Group, a digital shadow army tasked with one mission: steal enough hard currency to keep the regime afloat. In 2014, the group rose to fame in a single battle. That year, Sony Pictures was preparing to release a film called The Interview, about two American talk show hosts who are recruited by the CIA to assassinate Kim Jong-un. To Americans, it was just a comedy. But to North Korea, it was a serious act of insult. They even filed a protest with the United Nations. Under pressure from the North, Sony Pictures made certain compromises, making a few small changes to the film's ending. Thinking that would settle it, they continued pushing forward with the release plan. On September 25, 2014, a Sony Pictures employee received an email. He thought it was from an advertiser, so he downloaded the attachment. But what he didn't know was that the attachment contained malicious code. This was a Lazarus Group phishing attack. Over the following weeks, more forged emails were sent out and opened by more Sony Pictures employees. Through this method, the Lazarus Group stole parts of previously unreleased film scripts, future release plans, and the personal information of about 4,000 employees. In the end, not only did the film's release plan fall apart, but the company also suffered losses of nearly $200 million. Of course, North Korea denied any connection to the cyber attack, claiming the hacking was a righteous act carried out by North Korean supporters and sympathizers. In February 2016, hackers from the Lazarus Group again issued 35 fraudulent instructions through the SWIFT payment system, attempting to illegally transfer nearly $1 billion from Bangladesh Bank's account at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. 5 of those instructions successfully moved $101 million. However, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York grew suspicious because of a spelling mistake in one instruction and stopped the remaining $850 million in transactions. An incredible stroke of luck. Back to our story. The secret unit that was planning to recruit Jong-yol was very likely the Lazarus Group, or an organization like it. According to North Korean defectors, once newcomers are recruited, they receive comprehensive and in-depth training in computer science, including hacker skills such as cybersecurity, network penetration, and software development. If Jong-yol was chosen, he would have no way to refuse and no way to escape. Although this job would come with rewards far higher than ordinary work and even certain privileges, the price would be that he would live under surveillance forever and lose his personal freedom. For someone like him, who had briefly glimpsed the brilliant world outside, that was something he could not accept. So he made up his mind to escape the country, and he had to do it before he turned 18. He chose his moment at the International Mathematical Olympiad, held the following year. Ri told his father what he was planning. His father not only agreed, but also stuffed $200 exchanged on the black market, into his hand, a gesture that is deeply moving. Because no matter whether he failed or succeeded in the end, Ri's father and mother would inevitably be implicated. But even so, they still supported their son's bold move. In July 2016, Jong-yol said his final goodbye to his parents. With $200 in his pocket, he boarded the plane with the North Korean delegation, feeling uneasy throughout the entire journey. You can see it in the opening ceremony photos. While the other contestants smiled at the camera, Jong-yol turned his head to the side, as if something heavy was on his mind. As soon as they arrived in Hong Kong, the coach had already confiscated everyone's passports. Jong-yol didn't have a smartphone, and he was not allowed to go out. Someone was assigned to accompany, or rather, monitor them the entire time. The competition took place during the day, and going out at night was forbidden. During the first 2 days, Jong-yol couldn't find any opportunity. In the end, the final result was that Jong-yol won a silver medal. Early the next morning, the whole group would fly to Beijing and then transfer to Pyongyang, so that night was his last chance. At 2 a.m., he took advantage of a moment when the minders let their guard down. He slipped out of the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology and took a taxi to Hong Kong International Airport. Jong-yol was a genius. His goal wasn't to board a plane, but to find the South Korean Consulate General in Hong Kong and seek asylum. But he didn't know the consulate's address, and he couldn't speak Cantonese, so he chose the airport first, because it was the place with the most foreigners, and he might run into Koreans there. Around 4 a.m., Jong-yol went to the Korean air counter and said to the staff, "I need to go to South Korea. Can you help me?" When they seemed unmoved, he added one more sentence. I'm from North Korea." Jong-yol was quickly taken to an office where he told the manager what he had been through. The manager was stunned and called the South Korean consulate general in Hong Kong, reporting the situation as it was. At first, the person on the other end was very skeptical because the common defection route is to enter northeastern China, then go to Mongolia, and from Mongolia to South Korea. No one had ever heard of someone defecting through Hong Kong. But later, as they verified the details, they realized it was very likely true, because there really had been a North Korean team at HKUST for the Mathematical Olympiad recently. They were willing to accept a compatriot in distress from the North, but the problem was that international convention forbade them from sending a car to pick him up, because that could violate Hong Kong and Chinese law, or give North Korea an excuse to accuse them of kidnapping one of its citizens. So they had the manager write down an address and told Jong-yol to take a taxi there himself. As he walked out of the airport, he flagged down another taxi and handed the note to the driver. During the ride, he kept nervously looking back again and again to see if any vehicles were following him. By then, several hours had already passed since his escape. The minders had surely discovered it and reported it to the North Korean consulate in Hong Kong. The shock and fury on their side was easy to imagine. Agents had probably already been sent out to search for him, but their search would likely have been focused around HKUST. After Jong-yol successfully arrived at the South Korean consulate, a diplomat stepped forward and asked, "Did you come alone? Are you okay?" Jong-yol's voice choked up. He was on the verge of tears as he said, "I can't go back." At least for the moment, he was safe. The consulate is South Korean territory. Once he was taken in, no one could take him away from there. Otherwise, it would violate international law. But the reality was that he was still in Hong Kong, and he couldn't simply teleport to South Korea. The worst part was that the incident had already triggered a diplomatic dispute. North Korea pressured China, demanding that their math prodigy be handed back. As a result, Hong Kong police deployed plainclothes officers to maintain 24-hour surveillance downstairs at the consulate. At the same time, the South Korean consulate tightened its security. Everyone who entered had to be checked and their identity verified to prevent North Korean agents from breaking in and doing something extreme. A standoff centered around Jong-yol was only just beginning, and Jong-yol knew none of this. According to secretly filmed footage by a South China Morning Post reporter, Jong-yol seemed quite relaxed after entering the consulate. He chatted and laughed with the staff. They gave him a small room and an offline computer to pass the time. At that point, China was caught in a dilemma. In the past, anyone caught defecting would definitely be repatriated, but Jong-yol had already entered the South Korean consulate and received protection. If they forcibly detained him and handed him over to the North, it would provoke South Korea's dissatisfaction. On the other side, Jong-yol expressed his worries about his parents to the consulate staff. He knew exactly what collective punishment meant. Even though he might gain freedom, his parents could end up suffering in a labor camp because of it. That guilt gradually made him more and more withdrawn. Every day he could only numb himself with video games and avoid reality. The consulate staff could only keep comforting him and then have him learn some South Korean culture to prepare for a new life. But North Korea remained extremely hardline, claiming that their math prodigy had been kidnapped by enemies while attending the competition, and that he had to be returned to them. Time passed, 2 full months. Then one day in September, the South Korean consulate suddenly received a phone call. Jong-yol had been permitted by the Chinese side to travel to South Korea, and Hong Kong immigration, under instructions from the Chinese government, issued him a temporary visa. The South Korean consulate then gave him a plane ticket to Seoul and a new passport. The name on the passport changed from Ri Jong-yol to Ri Jong-ho. After that, escorted by South Korean personnel, he went to the airport, boarded the plane, and left. The moment the aircraft lifted off the runway, he finally let out a sigh of relief. Just after arriving in South Korea, he told the media that the story about his father giving him $200 was something he had made up, that in fact, his parents knew nothing about his defection plan. I think he may have changed his story to reduce the blame placed on his parents back in North Korea. After arriving in South Korea, Jong-yol had to learn new social norms, how to use the internet, how to shop in a supermarket. 1 year later, he was successfully admitted to South Korea's best university, the Department of Mathematical Sciences at Seoul National University. Years later, Jong-yol gave an interview to Asia Television, and only then did the whole world learn about his escape. From this defection onward, North Korea did not send a delegation to the International Mathematical Olympiad for 2 consecutive years. 3 years later, when North Korea participated again, the accompanying minders monitored the contestants far more tightly than before, almost to the point of never letting them out of their sight. And Jong-yol's team leader may now be in some mine shaft, swinging a pickaxe and digging coal like crazy.